Hello, I'm Tim Matheson, and you're watching Retro TV Rewind.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Retro TV Rewind. So today I am joined by a legendary actor and director. You'll know him as the smooth talking otter from Animal House, and us 90s kids will also know him from hilarious films such as Drop Dead Fred and A Very Brady Sequel. And most recently, he is starring in the hit TV series Virgin River. Today I am joined by Tim Matheson. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, Noor. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. I'm very good. So to start off, I want to start off with like a little bit of a fun topic. So my page is all about nostalgia, mainly focusing on the 70s, 80s, kind of 90s era, and it's all just about feel good. So what is your fondest memory from around the 70s, 80s in your career?
Wow. I think I was lucky enough to be in a lot of westerns at that
Mhm.
time, and so hanging around a set with a lot of cowboys
Mhm.
and horses and riding horses, and it was sort of every American kid's dream growing up,
Yeah.
and so that I think was one of my favorite memories because I was in the Virginian for a year, and then I did two pilots for NBC. Neither was sold. Lock, Stock, and Barrel, and Hitched with Sally Field, and then was cast in Bonanza after dear Dan Blocker passed, and was in the last season of Bonanza, and then I did a series shortly after that with Kurt Russell in '76 um, called The Quest. And it was, it was just, Kurt and I would be standing around on a Friday night, midnight shooting in the back lot of every studio had a back lot at that time that was a Western street, Western town. So here we were doing this, and it's just like we look at each other and just go, I can't believe we're getting paid to do this. I mean, this is what we did as kids, and just goofed off playing, cowboys, and it was so that was the thing I was lucky enough to be a part of, and there's
Yeah.
nobody sillier, funnier, ruder. Than cowboys and the wranglers and the guys who took care of the horses and the gals that took care of the horses and the livestock, and it 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 just was. It took all of the pretense out of acting. I mean, so because you got to get on the horse, you got to ride. There's horse poop everywhere, and it's just it's just real life, and
Yeah.
and and they're real people. So it was quite a contrast to being a regular actor in a regular TV show, and everybody takes themselves very seriously. In
Yeah.
westerns, you really couldn't take yourself all that seriously.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, Westerns, they were such a huge, 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 huge thing, especially in the 70s. I mean, Clint Eastwood, he
Oh
was in
yeah.
every single Western film, and they were just, so big. So, absolutely, they just looked like so much fun to film. And were you always on set when filming Westerns, or did you ever go kind of, on certain locations?
We would go. I mean, it's interesting because you'll notice that in Western television series, the Cowboys never change clothes. I mean, I think Matt Dillon wore the same outfit for, I don't know, 20 years. I mean, on Gunsmoke. And I'll tell you the reason why is because at the beginning of the season, you go up, you'd go up to a cattle ranch or in Northern California. You'd go up into, in where, or in Arizona, and you work on a cattle ranch and you'd shoot scenes for the whole season on with the cattle riding, and they'd say, okay, Tim and Michael Landon ride really quickly left to right. You're racing from left to right, now turn around and walk back right to left, and so you'd gather all this what's called stock footage with every member of the cast all together one at a time, and they would be used during the season, so you didn't have to shoot that in every episode. So it made it easier to do the show, and it made it quicker to do the show. I mean, the Virginian was a 90-minute show, which we shot in 8 days. They shoot today in 8 days. You shoot a 1 hour episode,
Mhm.
typically in episodic television. So you can imagine how much stock footage was used
Yeah.
on those shows, and it was great. I mean, it's you could bank that footage, and that's why we always wore the same outfits.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Well, that's a
And
fun one, but I did not know that.
no one ever said anything. Gee, like why don't if there was a dinner scene or a party scene, you'd put on a little pull tie maybe and change your shirt.
Mhm.
But then the next day you're wearing the same thing.
Yeah.
You're wearing the same outfit. You always wear the same hat and the gun and everything.
I think that's the funny thing about a lot of, movies and television is that you see these things and you yourself you question them. You're like, okay, why, what is going on here? Why is this person wearing the same? But
How
you
dirty
never
are
get
those
the
clothes?
answer. You never get the no one ever tells you why. So you're always like watching movies or TV and you're like, well, why? So it's nice to actually know a little bit of,
And
behind the scenes knowledge. We know why.
honestly, I don't think anybody ever thought about it. It's like, gee, okay. I honestly, I never thought about it when I watched the westerns. Like, why? And don't they stink? I mean, don't they smell? I mean, what do they wear when they're washing those clothes?
Yes.
So,
No, especially with so many westerns, yeah, because a lot of them, also are shot in the desert. So yeah, gosh, you must be very hot, especially with all the ponchos and there's a lot of layers as well. So it must be a hot situation when you're
oh yeah,
when you're
the
filming.
hottest situations were when they used to, well, they still do, I guess, occasionally. It's shooting a scene that's supposed to be at night and it's during the day, and so it's called day for night. And what you do is you stop down you stop down the f-stop on the camera, and you pump in you just so much light, and everybody is just can't lights everywhere off camera. And they do a trick in the camera. They turn the f-stop down and stuff, and it looks like night, but it has to be so bright and everybody's kind of squinting and it's hot. And I can remember usually you're playing a night scene, it's cold, so you got to wear a jacket and there's a fire going, and it's like, oh my God, those were the worst.
Oh gosh, that's wow. That's a lot. Yeah, I can imagine as well all the lights on you as well. That's a lot of heat. That's a lot of
And back in
heat.
the day, they were big lights. They were called arc lights, and they had a piece of um, steel or some kind of combustible thing, which you'd strike the arc and you'd light it, and it was huge, and it pumped this light at you, and it was very hot. Nowadays, the lights are more modern, and they're cool, and so you don't burn up doing it.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. Technology has come a long way for
A little bit,
sure.
a little
And
bit.
I think it's amazing what you do because I know me and my mum were having a conversation actually recently, and we were both like, we are not made for the industry. We would never be like actors or directors just because we couldn't deal with the long hours and just it's you I mean, you just it's exhausting really, with the hours you work, day shoots, night shoots, and it's just, it's honestly exhausting to even think about. So we were just like, yeah, we can never do that. I think when I was younger, I was like, I want to be an actress and I want to get into the industry. And then I was like, got older and I was like, no, probably not, because I'm just I need my sleep. I'm very sensitive
Also,
when it comes to not sleeping.
actors go home and you have to learn all your dialogue for the next day or the day. I mean, I always would work hard on the weekends and try and learn the whole week so that I could just study each day as we went along. But
Mm,
I must say, yes, it's tough for actors and stuff. The crew it's harder on the crew
mm,
because they are there first thing in the morning, first light, all the way through to the end of the day, every day. So actors get days off. I
yeah.
mean, so you might get a day, 2, 3 days off. And so you don't have to do it every day like they do.
Mhm.
And it's tougher on the members of the crew, the men and women that are on the crew, I think, than the actors. The top actors that are in every scene, like let's say James Bond, okay, Daniel Craig. That's tough. It's
Yeah.
got to be tough because he's on all the time. But usually it's not that bad.
Okay, well, well, that's good. That's good to know.
The rejection is bad. You go up for 12 auditions, you get one maybe or none. So, but you got to reset your mind and go on and get the next 12 auditions and stuff. So,
Yeah.
uh, I love it. I mean, there were ups and downs and in my career, and it's like I wouldn't change it for the world. It was great. It's been great and still is.
So, how did you get into acting? What was the deciding factor? Was it something you wanted to do from a young age? Was it someone who inspired you?
I, you know, I think when I was really young, my 6, 7, 8, my parents went through a divorce, and of course I blamed myself. On some deep level I thought, oh, it's my fault. If I had only done this, that, or other, it must be me. And so I would go on the weekends, and I was always watching television. I was watching old movies on TV, and getting lost in those. Anything to take me away from the turmoil or the pain of seeing my parents' marriage dissolve. And a lot of kids go through that. So I'd go, and then I'd go to the movies on the weekend, and I would just sit there and watch the same two. Then it was a double bill, so you'd watch the same two movies over and over again. You didn't have to leave. So I'd sit there for 4 or 6 hours and just watch both movies again and again. And I wanted to be in that world. It felt safe for me, and it always ended, happily, and there was always justice served, and I kind of looked at my life like, oh gosh, there'll be a happy ending here. My mother and my father will probably get back together, and everything will be fine. No. But it was sort of my refuge, and I think in the 6th grade I started acting in a class we did that had we would do like a version of the Today Show with a couple of hosts, and then we would have guests, and you'd go on and pretend to be a guest, and so that was my first thing, and I would get some laughs, and like the prettiest girl in the class kind of thought I was funny and cute, and so it was working for me. And
Yeah.
I was staying with my aunt and uncle that one year, and I was up in San Bernardino, which is east of Los Angeles, and well, my mother was back here pulling it together and finding a better job and things. And when I came back to LA, I told everybody in San Bernardino, I said, I'm going to be in TV. I'm going to get in. I'm going to be an actor. And I used to sneak onto the lot at Disney, climb over the fence, and run around like Zorro, and on the sets, and I'd find scripts and things like that. So it was always a magical place for me. So I always wanted to be an actor ever since I was, I don't know, 10, 11. And when I got that first job when I was 12. So, and it was as good as I'd hoped it would be. Um, it turned out it was a lot more challenging than I thought. I just thought, oh, you just be yourself. But then as parts got more challenging and difficult, then I had to learn my craft.
And I think, what you said with, when your parents got divorced and that was kind of like, an escape for you. And I think that's the wonderful thing about film and television is it's an escape for a lot of people, because I mean, the world we live in at the moment, is doesn't seem like it's going in a great way,
Yeah, I agree.
And so, it's wonderful when you get to watch these movies, all these TV shows, because you just forget about everything else that's going on around you, and you just get lost in it. And for me personally as well, that's also why I love watching comedies, because they make
Yes,
you feel good. I mean, there's so many amazing films, of course, that are drama and action, but comedy if you're going through a hard time, it makes you feel good, and that's something you want to laugh. And I think
absolutely.
that's just the amazing thing. And so many of your films. have done that for me, that I get to watch them and just get lost in them, and just you just laugh, and it's just hilarious, and you just forget about everything, and that's the wonderful thing. And I'm sure you've done that for so many people, not just for me. So
Oh, well, that's very nice. Thank you. And there's so much fun going to work and laughing all day, at
yeah.
what people are doing or saying, or just being around people who are funny. And when I worked with Chris Farley, um, and he would entertain the crew and the background artists between takes. But he did a striptease, or he would do, he would just be silly and get everybody laughing. Well, he didn't have to. He could have gone back to his trailer, and he didn't have to do any of that. But he did, and so it was a treat to be able to work with people like that, who are just so outgoing and so funny all the time. And Chris was definitely one of those.
Oh, that's so lovely. And that's so nice as well, when you get along with people, and your work environment is it's a nice place to work, it's a happy, positive place. That's really lovely to hear as well.
Yes, yeah.
And so Animal House is
Ah,
coming up to 47 years this in a couple of weeks, I believe.
you're right. You're absolutely right.
And so how did the opportunity to play Otter come about?
Well, you know, I've been as a, so I'm probably 27 or 28, about the time Animal House was getting, made, or going into pre-production, or, script is being developed and all that. And I had gone through different phases of my career. I was a kid actor, then I was a cowboy actor, then I was a straight leading man, young leading man, and I was playing all these lawyers and all these kind of real boring kind of nice guy parts, and it was like, oh my god, I mean, it was not very interesting. I mean, I'm acting, I liked it, I got, and I'm getting paid well, and it was great, but I wanted to break out of that. So I took an improv class, and I started studying improv, and just to mix it up, and scare myself, get up on stage. No dialogue. And you just go ahead and work with the other actors. And the thing about improv is you learn how to work with a team of people. And it's say yes to whatever they're saying. Because boy, it's raining out. Yes. Oh my God, it's coming down so hard. Now it's starting to snow. I mean, you just go with that. So I get this script. Back then, it was in the mail, and my agent sent it out, and or messenger, and it's Animal House, and I'm a big Lampoon fan. I was a big National Lampoon fan, which was then the comedic magazine in America. And it was outrageous. It was always crossing the line of good taste and poor taste, and but with knowing they were crossing the line and making fun of the fact that they were, hopefully knowing, saying inappropriate things and doing inappropriate things. And I read that, and it was one of the first scripts that I ever read. I said, I got to play that part. I have to play that part. I know, I feel it. I know it. This, I will do anything to play this part. And right away, they set up a meeting. I go in to meet the casting director. They call me back to meet the director. I get home, and they say, no, they didn't like you. They think you're a cowboy or a surfer. You're not preppy. No, you can't. They didn't even want you to audition. And it was like, oh my God. I mean, I think I remember that night going out and getting drunk and thinking, oh my God, if I don't play this part, I'm going to be stuck playing these boring roles the rest of my life. And so I begged my agent, and I said, do anything, call in favors, whatever. I had done that earlier that year. I'd done a film called Almost Summer for Universal. So I knew the executives at Universal, and I just begged them. I said, just let me go in. Just let me have an audition. If it doesn't work out, then I'll be happy. I can rest easy that, okay, I didn't get it, But if I just don't even get in the room, please. And I wanted to, I knew that character. And so I got in the room and I was auditioning, and I happened to be auditioning with Peter Riegert, who was also an improv actor, and we just hit it off. We started, riffing with each other and using the dialogue and playing it and it was like we'd known each other for years. And it worked for the character. It worked for the scene. We had them all laughing. We just did it again and again. I came back the next day, and it was really the only time it's ever happened to me that John Landis, the director, sent me out into the hallway while they were all talking in the room, and then he came back out into the hallway and he said, "We're going to hire you. We're going to hire you for this part. We love you. We thought you were fantastic. You've got the part." And they never do that. They never,
Mm,
because they don't want the studio doesn't want you to know that. They want
yeah.
you to go, well, we sort of like him, but we don't want to pay him any money. And I knew this movie wasn't going to pay any money. I mean, I just wanted to play that part. I mean, it was a low budget movie, and nobody got paid hardly anything. And so I didn't care. I mean, but this was a chance to change the course of my career, I felt. And it was also the funniest script I'd ever read. And that's how it came about. And I was lucky to get in a room.
And were you at all like the character at the time? Were there any similarities between you and the character? Were you quite the ladies' man, smooth talker at that age? Could you relate to the character in any way?
Oh no, oh no. I mean, I was playing somebody. I was playing a couple of guys that I knew that were really like that. That I wasn't. I was shy. I was short and shy in high school. I mean, I remember a girl named Janelle Penny told me in high school. She said, "Tim, you're so cute. I would go out with you if you were 6 feet tall." And I was like 5'6", 5'7". She just broke my
Oh,
heart.
that's mean.
I mean, it was mean,
That's
but I mean, she meant well. I
horrible.
mean,
That's
so,
horrible.
but I got by it by being funny or cute, and that's how I got by. I was not smooth. So
Okay.
this was my chance to be that guy, and to be that guy that I knew several people I knew closely were like that. And it was written so distinctly well that it was not hard for me to play that character.
Well, I'm going to say there as well that you definitely got the last laugh because you still are extremely handsome,
Thank
and
you very much.
you were at that time one of the most handsome men. I mean, every woman was in love with you. I mean, even when I was little and I was like, watching you, like when I was little, I grew up with Drop Dead Fred, and I was watching you, and I
Oh
was
yeah,
you were just so handsome and so dreamy. I mean, every
sweet. Well,
woman at
thank
every age is going to love you. So, she missed her chance there because
you.
you got the last laugh.
Still haven't heard from Janelle Penny, but you never know.
You never know. You never know. Maybe one day. And, you worked with two incredible actors who at the time were unknown. You worked with Kevin Bacon and also John Belushi. And what was your experience like working with them?
Well, John was a huge star on TV because of Saturday Night Live. It was the second year of the show, and we couldn't walk anywhere on campus without the students going crazy, because Belushi was so outrageous and so charismatic and funny on Saturday Night Live. And a lot of people don't know this. He was still doing Saturday Night Live while we shot Animal House. He'd be in Eugene, Oregon, where we shot Animal House Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And early, he'd get off half day Wednesday. They'd get him on a plane, I think in Portland, Oregon, shoot him back overnight to New York. And Thursday morning, he was in New York rehearsing Saturday Night Live, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then doing the show Saturday night live, and then coming back to Eugene where we were on Sunday. And sometimes
Oh,
me and
wow.
my and D-Day, my pal Bruce McGill, we'd pick up John at the airport, take him home to his wife Judy, and just sort of hang out and get his feet back on the ground, because 3 hours
Yeah.
time difference. And after Saturday Night Live, there was an after party that was like legendary. They were just outrageous parties. Um, Kevin Bacon had never done anything before. That was his first acting job, I believe. It was, if not, if he'd done any acting, then maybe this was his first movie, and
Mhm.
he was wonderful in it. But the Deltas, the guys that we never associated off camera really too much with the
Oh.
Omegas, who were the jerks, and so I didn't really get to know Kevin. I mean, I didn't have any scenes with him, or um, and so. Um, but it was listen, I think Kevin Bacon has evolved into one of the finest actors of our generation. He reminds me in many ways of Donald Sutherland, who every time you saw Donald, God bless him, that he was a different character, and he would start with the hair and with the mannerisms and everything, and he would create and craft a unique character for every part he did. And Kevin Bacon has evolved into that kind of an actor, and I'm just so pleased and proud and happy to see how he's evolved. And I've run into him a few times, and he's a wonderful man, and Kira is great, his wife. So I mean, he's happy. They've been together forever. He's got a very successful career, and God bless him.
Yes, I think Kevin Bacon, he seems so, when you see him on screen, when you see him, like in interviews and everything, he seems just so lovely and just very, grounded and down to earth, just a very normal, lovely guy, and I think
Yeah,
that's really, really lovely to see.
yeah, it
Um,
is.
and do you have any funny behind the scenes stories that you haven't shared before? Is there anything you can think of maybe we haven't heard, maybe we don't know?
From, let's see, Animal House, eh? Let's see. Well. The There was, you know, let me think. Yes, okay. So, uh, in the first scene of the movie that Otter, my character, is in, I got a towel wrapped around. I've just taken a shower. I'm trimming my nose hair, and I dropped and I dropped the towel, and there's my bare butt, and then I put some pants on and then go on with the scene. Well, we shot that when we were shooting. When you were shooting in Oregon in November and in early December, and we were shooting that week in a town nearby called Cottage Grove, where we were shooting all the parade sequence. But because of the time of year and because it's Oregon, it rains a little tiny bit, a lot, or every other hour, or something. It rains some point, somehow, multiple times every day. And whenever it would rain and we couldn't shoot the parade, we'd run inside where we had built certain sets. And one of them was Otter's room. And we shoot the scene with Dean Wormer's wife and Otter. And we shot the scene with me and Peter Riegert being upstairs, and it's our introduction in the movie. And you know, I, usually in every scene, there's never very many visitors to a set because people are off working and they're doing stuff. And when I was, this is the first time I'd ever been totally nude on a set, and it was nervous making. I mean, it's like and I'm looking around. I haven't seen so many people on the set in this whole movie. There's people I never even know who half these people are, but they are there to see
Uh,
me disrobe in front of everybody. And it's like I was like I didn't want to say anything to the director. I was like, who all the hell are these? Get them, throw them out, or just so. So I just went ahead and did it, and It was it was fine. It was great, and it's a funny moment. It's a very funny moment to see. There's my bare butt, and I think nothing of it. And but that was one of the times, and and I don't think I ever saw half those people again. You know.
Gosh, you know why they were there.
Oh yeah.
It's no secret, but gosh, that's just. I mean, you can't really get more vulnerable than being completely nude in front of people and strangers. So
No.
I mean, that's just yeah, that's pressure. That's just really. That is a lot of
Yeah, it was a
pressure.
little at first, the first take, it was a little distracting, and, then I finally just said, "Ah, to hell with it."
Yes, you just gotta try and forget the people there.
Let it hang out, what are you gonna do?
Yes, yes. And did you have any idea at the time that Animal House would become what it has, just one of the biggest films, really a film of all time?
No. I mean, with Belushi in it, we knew it had a real shot.
Mhm.
And because the guys from the Lampoon, Doug Kenny and Chris Miller, two of the writers, were on set every day, and because of the energy of John Landis as the director, he was the perfect director for Animal House because he's outrageous constantly and kept the energy of the set up and moving, and and kept the tempo what it was supposed to be. And Ivan Reitman, God bless him, he was a tremendous producer. And Ivan had developed this script for him to direct. And but the studio wouldn't hear about it because he'd only done a couple of little Canadian movies that weren't terribly good, or they were little low budget movies. So they said, no, 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 no. We like John Landis. He just did Kentucky Fried Movie, and we saw that, and we like that. So we think we're gonna use him. And so it was there was that kind of energy on the set, and it was, but you never knew if it was ever going to work. I mean, all the ingredients were there, and the crew would come back on they wouldn't show dailies. Is usually every day you look at the film you shot the day before. Well, they didn't have time for that. So they would go on Sunday and sit and look at the whole week that they shot that day before. And more of the crew started going to dailies. I mean, it's the last thing you want to do as a crew member is go and sit for 3 hours or 2 hours and watch film that you were there when they shot it on a day off, on the one day off you have a week. But more and more of the crew started doing that. So they'd come back on Monday quoting lines that had been said and laughing. Oh God, when you did this, oh my God, So we got a sense that this just might work.
Yeah.
But I think the moment I realized that it really had a chance was when I saw the poster.
Mhm.
Um, and it was Rick Marowitz, who was a National Lampoon uh, artist who did a lot of covers. As a matter of fact, I'm going to shamelessly plug my book. He did. I asked him to do me a favor, and he did the cover for my book. And
Oh,
he's one.
amazing.
He's wonderful. And so when I saw the Animal House poster with all of us as cartoon characters, I said, yeah, I think this might just work because it communicated visually what we were trying to create on camera. That these
Mhm.
characters are bigger than life and funnier than life, and they're kind of cartoons. It's the cartoon version of fraternity in college.
And speaking of your book, actually, first of all, the name. I wonder where is the inspiration for the name? Where did it come from? I'm very, very curious because it sounds familiar. I feel like I might have heard you say it once or
Maybe
twice.
once or twice.
Hmm.
Yes. I mean, it was sort of my catchphrase as Otter.
Yes.
Damn glad to meet you. Eric Stratton, Rush Sherman. Damn glad to meet you. I mean,
No,
but I had so many different ideas for titles that we kept moving them around and trying, and this one just seemed to be the tone for the book, that it's
yes.
fun, and you'll enjoy it, and there's going to be an inside look at it. I'm not taking myself too seriously, and come on in and jump right in and enjoy the fun.
And why did you decide to write it? And how long was the process? How long was the process? When did you actually decide, okay, I want to write this book?
Well, originally, interesting question, or interesting because I'm a big fan of how movies were made and how
Mhm.
there's a film called The Making of the Wizard of Oz by Al Jean Harmitz, and she also wrote, I think, The Making of Casablanca. And I love those books, and I love reading about famous movies being made. And so I wanted to write that book. And I was there. I've got pictures and I've got, so I went to Universal and tried to dig up all of the production notes and the budget and each department's notes on wardrobe, makeup, hair, da 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 da. Well, when General Electric owned Universal for a minute, they burned everything that was on paper and they did
Oh.
not memorialize anything. They didn't scan anything or, too
Mm,
much trouble, too much. Yeah, it's dangerous to have paper laying around. So they threw it all out and it infuriated me.
mm,
But so I couldn't access that, but I still wanted to do that book. And then I pitched that book to a publisher and they said, well, we love that. We love that. But that we think can be, a section of the book, but let's hear about your beginning of your career and other moments and, well, with Westerns and then working with Clint Eastwood and working with Jackie Gleason and Lucille Ball. And you were so fortunate to do all these work with these iconic stars that a lot of young people today don't never heard of, don't even know that they existed, and I said, okay, let me try and put down stuff. If I think that's going to be interesting, well, we can go with that. And the more I thought about it, and the more I you know wrote about it, the more memories that started flooding back in. Like working with Lucille Ball, I realized what she was doing for me and to me while we worked together. I think Lucy was instrumental in me getting the part in Yours, Mine, and Ours to play Henry Fonda's oldest son. And she was there when I tested, she was there when I auditioned, and she was always, you know, commenting between takes and congratulating me and saying, that was good, try this, do that. And I realized vaudeville was tough. She came up through vaudeville. And being a movie star in those days was tough, I mean, because your career could be over in a heartbeat.
yeah.
So I think she loved my sensitivity. She loved my approach to my work, but I think she thought I should be tougher.
Mhm.
And in a variety of ways, when you were on a set with Lucille Ball, there was no chit chat. There was no, goofing around. You're here to work. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Rehearse with your props. I mean, it's just, she was very professional. And every time you were next to her or with her in a scene, you learned something. And when we would talk, she'd invite me into her trailer and I'd sit and chat with her for, half an hour or so. The lesson I got was toughen up. I mean, she never said it in so many words, but there was a time she invited me to come on her show. After Yours, Mine, and Ours, called Here's Lucy, that she did a show with Lucy Arnaz, her daughter. And I was supposed to be dating Lucy Arnaz, and I made an entrance. I knocked on the door, and they'd had a scene, and I walked into the middle of the scene, was introduced to Lucy, and so I'm on the set, and it was live, and it was a live show, and with an audience, and which was very nervous making for me. And at one point, I'm standing backstage with Lucy and a wonderful actor named Gail Gordon, who was in Our Miss Brooks, Mr. I forget his name, Conklin, or he was the principal of the school. And Lucy was so generous. She always had people who had worked with her when she was in vaudeville or early days of movies, and that weren't maybe working as much as they used to be, and they weren't, they needed to. You need to work just enough to get your insurance, your health insurance. Over here, we don't have it like they do in England. So backstage is me, Lucy, this woman that Lucy has brought on to do like two lines, and Gail Gordon. And just before this woman goes out, we're standing backstage. There's a door, and then she'd go through that to the set out there where the audience was. Lucy looks at Gail and me, and she says, $10. She blows her line. And I thought, oh my God, what a horrible thing to say. What a terrible thing to say. I was shocked, and the woman kind of looked at Lucy and smiled. And her cue came. The woman opens the door, walks out there, slams the door. Boom! You hear a couple of lines. She got her laugh, and then boom. Then she came back out, And she walked over to Lucy and stuck her hand out, like, where's my $10? And I realized what she was doing. It was the way athletes treat each other.
Mhm.
Athletes, they're not really, you always say the worst possible thing you
Yeah.
can. They say terrible things to each other. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you can't putt. You sure can't putt today. That's to save your life. I mean, you may be driving, 340 yards, but you can't make a 3-foot putt. And they say things sort of kidding on the square.
Mhm.
And I realized she was just kind of communicating to me like, it's tough. You got to be tough, and you
Yeah.
got to be able to. You're going to get knocked down, and when you get knocked down, you got to figure out how to get back up and keep going. So that's what I learned. I look back at it. I don't know that I knew it at the time that that's what she was doing, but I figured it
Yeah.
out while I'm writing the book. That's what Lucy was doing for me, and Jackie Gleason was a similar kind of thing. So it working with those people was a treasure and a treat, and it would behoove as many of your listeners and watchers as possible to go back and look at the honeymooners that Jackie Gleason did, and go back and look at I Love Lucy, and go back and see those so talented people. They're so
Yeah.
talented, and learn from them.
No, I think, I Love Lucy is such a hilarious show. And I think that, we don't that's also the thing. That's also kind of why I love, television and film from those eras, because you don't have things like that anymore. There's nothing like that on television anymore, like those shows. So, it's such a special time, and they're,
Yeah,
very special shows. And, like you said, iconic actors. Lucille Ball, I mean, she's amazing. And
yeah.
she's just hilarious. She's fantastic. And I think, yeah, it's absolutely incredible that you had the chance to work with her. And how
And
old were you at the time as
I
well?
was just it was I think I just turned 18 because I was alone. I didn't have to have my parent on the set with me. It was my first
Mhm.
movie that I could do as an adult. So I was sort of a young adult, and I didn't need a permit and I have to go to school like all the other kids did, the younger kids did. So it was that's what it was for me.
Yeah. And speaking of, iconic actors you work with, you obviously got the chance to work with Clint Eastwood. What was your experience like on set with him, working on that Magnum Force?
Yeah, so Magnum Force. Well, he's the coolest guy in the world. I mean, he always played it. He never worked at being tough. I mean, he was just he was so cool, and he was so prepared. He was different. I went up to him the first day, and I met him. It's the first time I'd met him. We're shooting a scene in a shooting gallery, where I'm firing the gun and my service revolver, and he meets these four cops that are the bad guys in the movie, and nobody knows that yet. So, and I went up to him and I introduced myself, and he's very gracious and very tall. And I said, Clint, I said, if you would like to, I'll run lines with you, or we can rehearse, or anything you want to do. And he said, oh, thank you. But there's something about saying the lines for the first time when you're on camera that I like, because it's fresh and it's not rehearsed and it's real. So let's just do that. I don't want to rehearse it. And he said, and so I said, okay, great. And I'm walking away thinking, he's not a real actor. I'd seen him. I knew he was, but I hadn't seen Fistful of Dollars or A Few Dollars More. So I just thought this is a TV actor got lucky, and he really doesn't have any craft, because Olivier and Gielgud and Paul Scofield, they all rehearse. So I mean, those actors rehearse. But I learned there's a truth to being a film actor, and he was so good in the scene when we did it, because he was really listening and he was really talking. And as I recall, he changed one word in his dialogue, and that affected my dialogue, and I had to change a word to accommodate his word. and it was like doing improv, I mean, it was like, and and it was great. And then he just said, cut print. And that was it. He does not like to do a lot of takes.
Mhm.
And, I worked with Jeffrey Donovan, who was from Burn Notice, and Jeffrey was hired to play a character in a movie that Clint directed with Angelina Jolie. And Jeffrey never met him. Day one, he's got a scene with Angelina Jolie, makes his entrance. Clint says, I don't say action. So whenever you're ready, come on out the door and start the scene. And Jeffrey went, okay, and he had a fair amount of dialogue. He walked out, and there's a train station, and there's a train, and Angelina's getting off the train, and Jeffrey goes up, has a couple of lines with her, and then he exits. And after he does that, Clint goes, gut print. And Jeffrey goes, oh, no, no, Clint. Maybe even said, Mr. Eastwood, no, we got to do it again. And he said, why do we have to do it again? And he goes, well, I left out this part.
Mhm.
And he goes, oh, you left out a line. Okay. Um, we'll do it again. Just don't leave out the line. And, and don't do that anymore. And he said, okay. Because what he was saying was bring your best on the first take, and
Yeah.
let's do that. And we can go home early. We won't kill the crew, and you'll be better. And
Mhm.
and and you look at a movie like he did with Meryl Streep, Bridges of Madison County, and it just feels loose and it feels real. And I mean, and great directors like John Ford would never rehearse an emotional scene with the actors. He would just wait. He said, just, you're going to be sitting. Yeah, I remember Henry told a story about how it was young Abe Lincoln, and he was seated, and he had a scene with, I think, a woman who was his mother, or about his mother, or something like that. And they said, shall we rehearse this? And he said, no, Henry, you'll be there, and she'll be there. There's not going to be any motion. But just sit there for a second. And we'll put the stand-ins in, and we'll light it. But we'll wait until we'll do it on camera.
Mhm.
And it became so emotional when they did it for the first time. And it's just priceless. And there are
Yeah.
so few directors that know how to work with actors that way. I'm constantly trying, I mean, especially on Virgin River, if I have an emotional scene, I mean, and I directed a lot, and I know how to work with actors. And and we have some young directors. They don't know what the deal is. You got to shoot the wide shot first, and then you got to come in and get a medium, then you got to get the close shot. No, do what's best for the scene. Capture that performance. That's the best performance. So I often ask in an emotional scene, I said, can we, I don't mind shooting a medium shot. Can we also do my close up at the same time?
Mhm.
Because my first few takes are always the best. And because what happens is, and Mel Brooks understood that too, is that the more you do it again and again and again, and the more you're trying to recreate some concept of it that's in your head, and it's
Mhm.
not quick, and it's not an improvisation, it's not loose. It just gets very studied.
Yeah.
And that's what Clint taught me.
Mhm.
And I just think he's a marvelous director, and I think he's a remarkable actor. And in many ways, like Cary Grant. Not that he's light and romantic and all that, but Cary Grant played one character, Cary Grant. And Clint Eastwood basically played Clint Eastwood. I mean, he played, yeah, there's shadings and there's different guys and this and that, but he's not out there trying to do Hamlet. I mean, he knows what he does and does it really well,
Yes.
and I love him. I just love him. I've seen him several times since then, and couldn't be more generous and gracious and down to earth and wonderful
Yeah.
to his fans. And um, yeah, I adore him and his work, and he taught me a lot.
No, he's absolutely incredible, Clint Eastwood. And I remember a few years ago, I think it was watching a documentary on him and, talking about all his films. And then when he obviously went into directing, and it's just incredible to watch and see. And I don't think I've ever read about or seen another director who is like Clint Eastwood or does it the way he does, and he is just amazing.
Yeah, he's a
And
gem.
I think also what you said about emotional scenes, it makes a lot of sense, of course, because if you do keep doing it, it will lose its authenticity. It won't feel real if you keep doing an emotional scene. I can understand it. It just if you did it like 10, 20 times, by the 20th take, it would just not. It wouldn't feel real. So that's very true, and that makes a lot of sense.
And it'll be less emotional, and then you're trying to get that emotion back, or you're trying to mimic that emotion, or something, and it's just let it happen. I
Hmm.
mean, just let it happen. I mean, that's what John Ford would always shoot, and I think Clint does too. Shoot it in a two shot. Let the actors give the pace to it. Make sure that they do it well, and then print it and move on. And it's because it doesn't need a lot of cutting. It doesn't need a lot of manipulation back, in the editing room. If you've got two good actors, just let them get out there and act.
Absolutely. And, those are the scenes as well. When you watch them, is what also affects the audience. That's when you can feel when something's forced, or, you can feel when the emotion is really raw and real. It touches the audience, and then you start to cry and you really feel it. And so, you know, those are those are the scenes, when I've cried to many films because, because and oh, good. I'm glad. And it's nice to know other people, of course, not ashamed to say I cry when I watch movies
Oh my God. I
because
cry when I listen to music. I mean, it's like it's
Mhm.
one of the keys for me to doing an emotional scene or emotion. Certain, I listen to a lot of different music, and when I find the right music
Mhm.
for a character's moment or a scene, I'll just listen to it again and again and again and again. And between takes, I'll just put my headset on and I'll just listen to it because it keeps you in the mode. And this past season on Virgin River, I had this emotional scene, and I found Andrea Bocelli and the wonderful country star Chris Stapleton did a duet together that just killed me. I mean, I love Chris Stapleton, and I knew Andrea Bocelli, and of course, I mean, he's one of the greatest singers alive. But to
Yes.
these two together, and it's an album called Duets, where Andrea sings with Jennifer Lopez, Shania Twain,
Oh,
um, and I can go on. I'm forgetting everybody else, but just with everybody he's singing with,
mhm.
and it's like how intimidating would it be to sing opposite Andrea Bocelli?
Yeah.
But Chris Stapleton and that song, it's it tore me up every time I heard it.
Mm. Now, music is such a huge, huge part of film. If you took music away from film, it wouldn't have the same emotional effect on people, whether it be like a horror film, like let's say Nightmare on Elm Street. You have
Yeah,
that
sure.
very creepy score, and if you just silence that whole film, it wouldn't scare you as much as it does
You
without
are
that
so
music.
right. You are so
Sorry.
right. You're so right, and that's very astute because the music is as important, if is not more important than the dialogue. I mean, it puts the audience in a certain position. You're absolutely right, and then that helps the scene work.
Absolutely. And I love music. I love it, and I'm a big collector. I collect film music, soundtracks from film, and I'm sure you must be familiar with Ennio Morricone.
Oh, please, yes. I just
Yes.
adore him. I adore him.
I absolutely love his music so much, and I have a lot of his music in my collection. And kind of when you were saying about when you listen to music, it also makes you emotional and you cry. There's I've had that experience, particularly with Morricone. When listening to his music, I think he has a
Malena,
score.
Malena is one of my favorites that he does.
Which one? Sorry.
Malena.
Oh, Melanie, yes, yes, that's a beautiful, beautiful score, and one that I don't know if you've heard it before, but one that really I just just burst into tears. I just cried. It's a score called I Promessi Sposi, and
Oh,
it's just such beautiful, beautiful music. I think it was maybe the first track on the CD possibly I was listening to, and I just tears. I didn't even, I just listened to it and just tears just started coming down. I couldn't stop
now
it.
what film was it from?
The film was it was called I Promessi Sposi. I think it was yes, I think it was a film. Was it from the
Oh, I gotta find
60s
it.
or 70s?
Oh, it's an early one.
I'll Yeah, I'll share it with you. I'll share it with you.
Oh, thank you.
And it's just gosh, it's
Oh,
beautiful. And yeah, it's just funny when you just sit there and listen to music, and you don't expect it. You're not sitting there waiting for something to happen. You're just listening, and then all of a sudden just tears. And I honestly didn't know what was happening. I was like, why am I crying? But the music is just so beautiful, and it just you feel it. You feel it in your heart. It just makes you feel just
oh,
it's almost painful in a way, and but it's not because it's not like you're sad, but it hurts. You feel it in your heart, and it just creates that reaction. And I remember that very well. I
oh,
remember it very well. I was sitting with my boyfriend because he's also a big collector, and he's actually the person
oh,
who got me into collecting music. And I just started crying, and then he just hugged me, and he just tried to make me feel better, and I just kept crying. I just kept crying. And but
oh,
it's
so wonderful.
it's so it's so it's I have to say it's nice when it sounds weird, but it's nice when that happens, because it's just because also for me, I've never had music really make me feel that way, before. It's kind of a new experience, kind
Oh,
of.
it's great.
So, and I think it's particularly with film scores that just obviously, there's some amazing music out there, from artists, singers, but I think for me, particularly with film scores, there's just something about them, and they just, yeah, they can really just make you feel.
Oh my God. Oh, Morricone is one of my favorite. There's an album that Yo-Yo Ma plays
Hmm.
his music, which just from a lot of different scores, and it's just like, oh my God, it's heaven. It's just
Yes.
so good, and so it because I think what music does is it touches you on a subconscious level
Mhm.
without words, and it brings up feelings that you've got inside or held
Yeah.
inside or tucked away inside
Mhm.
and lets them out. I mean, it's the best therapy there is.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, when I've been married for 25 years and got a divorce, and it was a shocking transition for me. And I remember I was listening to a lot of country western music,
Mhm.
and Lady Antebellum and Stapleton and all the and it was the best therapy I could go through because country music's all about broken hearts and
Yes.
what couldn't be, and give me a double, and and
Yes.
it was speaking to the situation I was in and helped get me
Mm.
through it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, country music, yes, it's known. It's definitely known for it's
Oh
definitely
yeah,
known for that, absolutely. And yeah, I think it is when you are, feeling whether you're going through something, definitely the music absolutely brings out the emotion. I know sometimes I actually can't let myself listen to music when I'm just if I'm just not feeling great, or just going
oh
through something, or because it also brings that emotion out. And it's fantastic because it's such a great release, like whenever you cry, you feel relieved, you've let it out, and it's great. But
yeah,
sometimes as well, you're just like, yeah, this music, it's hitting me too much. I don't want to. I'm already not in a great state of mind. I don't want to kind of go almost deeper into it. So sometimes I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know if I'm mentally prepared to listen to this music, because just the second I start listening, sometimes
oh,
it's just no. the tears it instantly. So
That's sometimes
sometimes I
when
have to hold back.
I'll put on that's when I'll put on up tempo, rock
Mhm.
and roll and just try and shift the gears and get
Yes.
out of that other mode, and just, and find something that will take me to a more positive place and leave that other thing behind because it'll just give me a break.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That's the best thing. That's also what I do. If it's not in music, it's in film. You put something feel good on,
Yeah,
you just get lost in it and you just have fun, you enjoy it, and you just try to kind of, forget, if you're just not feeling great or, if you're going through a bad
yeah, yeah.
time. That's where music and film is so powerful, and it's an amazing thing for people. It
Uh,
really is. And so getting into directing, what made you want to, kind of take that shift from acting into also directing?
well, every actor thinks they can direct. I mean, we all think, oh gosh, oh God, I've got, and I actually started wanting to be a director. I remember I had a little wind up camera and I'd shoot movies when I was in high school and um, cut movies and so I was always trying to do that. And when I was under contract to Universal, they gave me an editing room and I could shoot 16 millimeter and I could cut it and play around with it and stuff. Um, it's not until you do it and step on the set that you realize there's so much more going on than you ever knew. From an actor's point of view, is a very limited point of view of seeing what directing is. So
Mhm.
that's when I started directing and I realized what I didn't know. That's when I started studying film more and looking at my favorite directors, and I'd find the DVDs or the back then laser discs that had the director's notes or the audio of the director talking about how they worked on this scene and how they shot this and blah blah blah. So I learned like that, and I I'm there to help the actors. Really, I'm there to help the writers and the actors and as a director, and I'm there to create an environment within which the actor can shine and honor the script. And because the script is our guide, and so that's why I wanted to tell. I mean, I remember looking at a movie that I thought I was just really good in. It felt organic, and I nailed it. It was an episode of a TV show, I guess, and I went and I looked at it, and it was like it was okay. You didn't really notice that I was really, really good or really. It was okay. It was just sort of another TV show, and I was kind of disappointed. And then I saw a show where I don't know that I felt I did the best work ever.
Mhm.
I thought it was okay. It was good. I mean, most of the time I was really good, but I wasn't as good as I thought I should have been. And then I saw the movie, and I was better than the director made it better than I did. The way he cut it, where the camera was placed, and I realized it's the director that helps me be that good. So that's why I wanted to direct, and I just thought if I put the camera in the right place, and
Mhm.
Spielberg, and I learned this so much from Steven Spielberg. Nobody stages a scene like Steven does. I mean, you never really notice it. It's just the actors are always in the right spot. The dynamic of the scene it touches the audience in a specific way because of the interaction, and it makes it easy to understand the composition of it and where everybody is and who everybody is, and then the coverage is easier. I mean, so that's what drew me to it. And and you learn. I must say, I learned to direct in the editing room because you get in the editing room and you go, "Oh my God, why didn't I get that shot? Oh, I need this. Oh God,
Mhm.
why did I shoot that scene four different times when the actor was doing the same thing the first take? I wasted 3 shots on it. I could have printed the first take, moved on, and just So I learned to direct in the editing room, and how to economize and to get better, and because directing, you're juggling a lot of balls at one time, and you have to do it in a certain amount of time, especially in episodic TV. You've got to be fast. You've got to really be precise. You can't shoot extra shots. You can't say, "I'll shoot a bunch of stuff and then we'll figure it out later." You basically need to have the picture cut in your mind before you go on the set. You got to get those pieces, give them to the editor, and oftentimes the editor will come up with different ways, cut a scene out, jump scenes around. I worked with some great directors. A guy named Robert Ferretti who did Under Siege, Steven Seagal movies. He's a wonderful, wonderful editor, and he would jump scenes around, take dialogue here and put it there. He would do all these magic tricks that made the show just better, quicker, and more impactful. So I was lucky enough to learn from and work with a lot of great directors and editors, and I miss it. I you know Working full time as an actor, you just don't have the time to direct. And I directed 4 episodes the first 2 years of Virgin River, the show I'm doing now, and it was so difficult. I mean, I've done it many times, but it was so difficult because when I was on, say, Heart of Dixie, I would direct like the first episode so I could, because the director has to prep for 2 weeks before you start shooting. Well, if I'm acting and I have to prep and then shoot, now I can't focus on the acting. I can't focus on prep. And then, so you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's like it's not the best thing, and the dynamic, I think, in the movie sets or TV sets have changed. Now there's a lot of people around telling you how to do it, and they may or may not know what they're talking about. And it used to be they'd hire you and let you go direct, and then because they wouldn't hire you unless they thought you could do it. And
Yeah.
they in the old days they let the director direct, and nowadays it's a little more difficult in network and some streaming shows where they're always there with their hands. Certain
Mm.
producers things are interceding, and I'd rather not have to go through all that. I'd rather just act.
Yes. No, gosh, I can't imagine doing both. Must be so difficult if you're directing and acting in the same episode. That's just
Whew.
that's
And
just
you don't
double the work
sleep,
and just a
and you
lot.
can't sleep. It's like, oh my
Oh
god.
gosh. No, I cannot imagine. And what is it actually like at the moment when you're shooting? What are your what are your hours like? Do you do you get sleep at the moment?
Well, usually it's a 12-hour day plus lunch. So that's
Mhm,
13 hours. And then it's half an hour to 40 minutes, depending on where you're shooting, to and from work. That's another 2 hours.
mhm,
So, that can be a 15 to 16-hour day. And then you got to come home and prepare the next day.
mhm,
But I'm fortunate on Virgin River that there's all different stories going on. There's 4 or 5 different stories intersecting, and so I'm not in all of them, and I don't have to work every day. And um, Alex Breckenridge and Martin Henderson carry the bulk of the show, but even they don't have to work every day sometimes. So it's fortunate enough that it's a balancing act that they try and give us all a break, and we do love the show, and it's a show about a sweet little town where a bunch of crazy people have sought refuge and rebirth and renewal
mhm,
up in the mountains of Northern California, and somehow all decide they can get along um, and fall in love and out of love. So it's a wonderful show, and it's kind of a throwback to the 70s or the 60s. It's sometimes it feels like Mayberry in many ways, because it's it's a feel good kind of show. There's not a terrible amount of violence. There's not too much. sex. I mean, there's romance, but it was a thing that, because as TV gets more and more violent and edgy, and they're trying to do this and push the edge of the envelope this way and that way. This is a good feel good kind of show
Yeah.
about people trying to get along and trying to learn from their mistakes. And it happened to premiere during COVID, and it was a place where people just rushed to get a look at what it's like to get outside in this beautiful, wonderful countryside, and feel good about something. So it is a feel good show, and I think it's the right time and the right place for a feel good show, and I think that's why it's so successful, and so many people watch it.
And I think that's very nice to hear when you say, there's romance, but like there's not too much sex. Because I'll be honest, there's a lot of TV programs, that are on at the moment, which, they're not very family friendly. You can't really watch them with your loved ones, let's say. So it's nice to know that there's a show out there which has like a good balance, because a lot of shows is literally a lot of it is just sex. I'm not
Well,
gonna lie,
it's interesting because I remember reading, and I'm trying to think, was it Frank Capra, or it was one of the great old time directors who talked about how do you handle a sex scene, and he said, well, you know, when you see people on the street kissing, or you see them in a room or something, you see people kissing and having a private moment. What do in real life? You look away. You look away. You typically give them, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be seeing this. So in a movie, when people are being intimate, what he said was, to make the audience comfortable, you need to have either make it comical, or you need to have a third person observing them that makes it okay for you to watch. It's the man and the woman kiss for the first time, and a servant, or a maid walks by and stops and looks at them and smiles and blesses what they're doing. Thinking, this is good. Or oh my God, or some behavior. But it was sort of a rule that he adhered to, and this was like in the 40s, in the 50s, and it made it okay for us to watch, and it made us relaxed. And oftentimes, I find sex doesn't advance the story unless they're doing it a certain way, or something about the way they're having sex defines the story, or it's a plot point, or this or that. We kind of know what's going to happen. We kind of know how it happens. Do I really? Does it stops moving the story forward? And as an editor and a director, anything that stops moving the story forward, you cut. So once they fall into bed, unless something really remarkable happens, then it's over. I mean, there's a show on TV now called Dying for Sex that is, I don't know if you've seen it.
I have
It's
no, I haven't.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's just
Okay.
fantastic because it's about a woman who's got cancer, and
Mhm.
she's dying, and she's never been fulfilled sexually with her husband.
Okay.
So, and she just blows out the stops, but it's a comedy, you
Yeah.
know, and so it walks that line, and it's quite good. I must say, I highly recommend it.
Okay, I'll have to have a look at it. I'll have
See what
a
you think.
I don't know. Is it on, well, where do you know where is it on Netflix or something, or Amazon, or
Yes, it's on one of those. I'm not. I saw
okay,
it.
I'll have
I saw it up in Vancouver, so it must be either on Netflix or Apple.
okay, I'll have
And
a look for
it's
it.
Michelle Williams is in it, and so it's just delightful. She's lovely.
Okay, I'll have to give it a watch. I need something new to watch. So
Yeah.
it'll be good. It'll be good. Because I honestly I don't really watch, a huge amount of current TV because there's just for me, I just love the classics so much. So there's just not a huge amount that really pulls me in. So
Uh-huh.
when there is a show that I watch that really grabs me, I'm like, okay, this is a good show.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
really have to.
I know. I always search for the same thing, or you'll watch the first couple of episodes and go, okay, all right. Or the first season will be great, and then second,
No, exactly. I agree. So it's. I feel like I think I'm probably quite picky as well, but I feel,
good
but
for you.
yes. Well, you have to if you're going to watch something, you have to enjoy it, So you can't just I'm not going to just watch something just to watch something. I want to actually,
Oh,
enjoy it and have a good experience.
absolutely.
And so speak now I'd like to talk about Drop Dead Fred.
Oh yeah.
Working because obviously most of the film you do work closely with Phoebe Cates, but don't work directly with Rick Mail. However, there are some scenes where obviously because he's the imaginary friend, he is still acting with you in those scenes, just not directly with you. But what was it like working with Rick Mail? Because he's a comedic genius, he is
Yeah.
hilarious, and sadly another one, God bless his soul,
Oh.
lost too soon. So what
You
was
know what it was so interesting too. It was very challenging because he's so funny, but he was invisible to me, so I don't see him. And it was tricky. It was tricky because he's so funny, and um, I loved working with him. I mean, he was just so inventive and so free and spirited and um, remarkable. He could improvise. I mean, I, he was just great. I wished that I'd had some scenes where I could talk to him or play off of him or something. And, I was the bad guy in there. So it was like, no. Uh, so I didn't get that chance. It was great working with Phoebe, Cates, and uh, who I'd known for a bit, but Rick he was a treasure, and I really enjoyed working with him.
did you speak much with him offset, or was it more just mm, didn't really have much time with him?
Not really, because I wasn't on set all that much
Mhm.
because it's Phoebe's story, and
Yeah.
and her bad husband. So I mean, and so she and Rick had all these scenes together, and she and her mother, and all these other characters. So I was just sort of, and I don't think I was there for maybe more than 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and um, and they condensed my storyline into that. So I didn't really get to spend a great deal of time with Rick, and um, Phoebe and I and her husband Kevin Kline, we all went out to see a play one night at the local uh, theater company, and but it was very, and I went to a baseball game while I was there, but I mean, so I wasn't there very long. I was just sort of in and out and goodbye.
And are you still in touch at all with Phoebe or Kevin? Do you still keep in contact or?
No, it's the weirdest thing about people you work with, and you get very close to them, and then bye, they're gone, and
Mhm.
and then you're in the next group, and the people I'm working with now, we've been through 7 years of our
Mhm.
show, and we've created a bond and stuff, but still, even between seasons, we will communicate a little bit with each other, but everybody sort of goes their separate way. Like Alexandra lives in Atlanta, and Martin lives in New Zealand, and so everybody's going, or Malibu, or wherever depending on where he is. But everybody goes a different direction,
Mhm.
and a lot of the people live in Canada, and so we don't really see them. But we do communicate, a text and email and stuff. But
Yeah.
um, then I'm now just catching up with all my friends back here in LA.
Mhm. And so are you still currently shooting or have you finished filming season 7 now?
We finished season 7 2 weeks ago, and
Is there
They
anything you can tell people at all about what to expect in season 7 without giving, anything away? Is there anything you can tell us?
well, I mean, we all know that my character Doc is fighting for my clinic and my license, and so the drama of that continues, and there is somewhat of a resolution, and Alex and Mel and Jack are seeking. We know in season 6 that they're seeking to adopt a child, and so that storyline continues and comes to a resolution, and and some, let me see how to say this, some relationships you think are always going to be there go through transitions, so,
Okay.
or begin transitions, and interestingly enough, we as the actors, you don't know what's going to happen in season 8, and so we're not told unless you just specifically say, hey, what's this going to, how do I play this scene, because I get, and then they'll tell you,
Okay.
but so it's but a lot of interesting twists and turns, and I got to play a lot of different kinds of scenes, lighter scenes, and more, because I'm not practicing medicine during season at the end of season 6. So just while I'm working that out, I'm doing other things, and playing pickleball or going fishing, or doing. So I got a chance to do scenes with other characters and people, and different emotional scenes, lighter scenes that you don't often see Doc get to play, because he's so much into his work and taking care of the people in the city, the town of Virgin River, that we see that again and again, and there's not as much of that this time as there has been.
Okay, okay. That's a very good sum up without giving away, anything. That was done very well.
Thank you. Netflix won't be angry at me
No, I know. I was like, oh, should I ask you? Because I was like, obviously you can't say much, but you might be able to just say a little. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate
then.
it.
My pleasure. My
I'm sure
pleasure.
the fans as well out there listening will appreciate it.
Good.
And so, do you have anything coming up? Any films? Anything new projects that you can share
Yeah, I
with
mean,
us?
I'm working on a bunch of stuff in between. Nothing that I'm sort of old fashioned and superstitious about, until it's signed, sealed, and delivered. I don't, it's not real, and so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested in directing the right thing and acting in the right thing, and I'm constantly looking for my next opportunity, and the next chance to take,
Mhm.
and whether it's on stage or screen or TV or whatever, and whether it's in front of the camera or behind the camera, all of that's wide open, and I'm constantly looking to do something different and new and challenging. So I think that helps keep me young, and not doing this, not doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then and on Virgin River, it's never been like that, So
Mhm.
it's it's um, it's a treat. And we do it in 4.5 months. So then I've got a full almost 6 months, 5.5 months to seek out and do other things.
And so I would like to ask you now about a Very Brady sequel because it's just such a fun, hilarious film that I feel like there are so many people who love it so much. Whenever I share a clip of it, on my Instagram, people they I mean it does incredibly well. People love it. They just think it is hilarious. And your character, Roy, is great. You're just so funny. And there's one particular scene I want to ask you about. Is the you probably have been asked about it before? Is the mushroom scene
Oh God, yes.
when you eat the spaghetti, start, start seeing things and start tripping and seeing. Um, what was how was it filming that scene, and how much of it kind of was your kind of own improvisation and your own kind of
They
ideas?
pretty much, pretty much let me go and do. I mean, it was scripted what the dialogue was and what's happening is, and I knew they were going to animate a sort of a cartoon around him, and it, but I did get to improvise a lot. I mean, I was barking, and I would just I just would, every take was different, and I would just go in a different, place, or just whatever my impulse was, they let me do, and it was great. And I gave them enough choices that they could pull it together, but it was one of those movies where it was hyper real. I mean,
Mhm.
it's there. It was a perfect parody of the Brady Bunch,
Yeah.
and which was borrowed from Yours, Mine, and Ours, the movie that I did when I was a kid. So it was kind of the full circle. And I remember when we were shooting a Very Brady sequel, 2 episodes of the Brady Bunch was on TV every day. So I could sit in my trailer and watch and go in on the set, and there was the same set that I just watched on TV from 50, 30 years ago. So it was it was unique in many different ways. And Gary Cole, I thought, was just remarkable. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like he he and Shelley. I mean, they didn't overdo it. They didn't, they weren't making fun of those people, and all of the kids that played, and Jan, I got to work with her the most. She was just a delight. So I mean, it was kind of a dream come true for me, and to be in a movie that silly and that surreal, and it's not a part or a style that I'd ever played before,
Mhm.
and the danger of all that is you're going to go too far in one direction or too far in another direction. You're going to mug, you're going to, so it's trying to walk a straight and narrow line. But to be there with Gary and Shelley was, they sort of set a tone. And so it gave you a guidance, oh, okay, I see. That's okay. And there, so you played it real,
Mhm.
and but my character had a secret, and
Mhm.
it was fun to be the good guy, bad guy.
Yeah. And did they approach you for that role, or did you have to audition? What was that process like?
No, that they had approached me. I think I had just done Black Sheep at Paramount and with Chris Farley, and so this was right after that. And they said, "Oh God, he'd be great in this." And I knew the Lad Company, and I knew um, I think I knew Arlene, the director, and so I sort of knew them. They knew me, and they said, "Oh God, let's get him." So
Yeah.
fortunately, it was one of those things. But Black Sheep, I had to audition for, and Chris Farley came in and became my brother. It just barged into the audition, and he wasn't supposed to even be there, and he came in and played the scenes with me, and he loved Animal House, and he loved Belushi, and wanted to hear any and every story I ever could tell about John Belushi, and he, yeah, basically adopted me. I mean, he was so great, and because of that experience, I think it led right into Very Brady sequel.
And has there ever been a particular role that you auditioned for that you really wanted but you didn't get?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, there's a million of them, and from bad movies to good movies to this and that. I mean, the biggest and most well known would be Indiana Jones, and like everybody in Hollywood auditioned for Indiana Jones. Um, I was. in a I was getting closer and closer to being one of the finalists,
Mhm.
and my scene was that I auditioned was Karen Allen, and but I knew that I was a long shot because I looked so young. I mean, well, it was after 1941. I knew Stephen and I knew Lucas, and I just I knew I looked too young, and
Mm.
so I told makeup, I said, "Can you just do like, stipple like beard on me? Can, anything you can do to help me look older?" And I didn't put a mustache on. I could have, should have. But I mean, and I got a call, I think a few days later, they said, "Oh, listen, they loved you. They just loved you. They're going to go another way, another
No.
direction." But they said, George wants you to come in because he'd like to talk to you. And it was like, okay. I mean, I didn't get the part, but George Lucas wants to talk to me. What is that about? Nothing like that had ever happened. Usually they don't, they don't want to, nobody likes to tell you no in
Yeah.
Hollywood. They let somebody else tell you no. So your agents tell you no. So I came in and George was very sweet and gracious. He's very shy. And he just said, I have to tell you, yours was, if not one of the best tests that we did. Because I had a very clear thing that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
It's like Henry Fonda always said, "What's my approach to acting?" And Spencer Tracy said, he said, "I walk in the room, I hit my mark, I look them in the eye, and I tell them the truth." And I just embodied that, and I just stayed stock still, and I played the scene opposite Karen, and had fun with it, and did what the scene called for, and I felt really good about what I did. And George said, You were fabulous. You're just too young. You're not old enough to play this character for us." And I said, "George," I said, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you shared this with me." But I said, "But you know." Hopefully we'll get a chance to work together again. It's like that hasn't happened, but
Oh.
but it was very sweet and generous of him. And there aren't many people like that in this business
Mm.
or in any business that would go out of his way and take time out of his day
Mhm.
to compliment an actor who didn't get the job. And usually it's done with a phone call or a note or whatever.
Yeah.
I just, that tells you how wonderful a man he is, and
Mhm.
his, and why there's such heart and joy in all of his movies.
No, that's so sweet. That's such a lovely thing to do. And I can see you. I can see you as Indiana Jones. I can. I think you would have been great. Oh, that's a
Well, thank
shame
you.
though.
Thank
That
you.
is
No,
a real shame.
Harrison
But
is
that
Harrison,
is
and Harrison is
yes.
pretty damn good. So
Yes. I mean, everything, everyone gets to kind of, you get the roles, you're I guess you're meant to get, and obviously he got that, and it was huge, and he did an amazing job, of
yeah,
course.
I mean he's
But,
fabulous. He's just fabulous. And but we all have those, that you're close on this, you came in second on that, or you can't, or you got the part and it's not a very good movie. So I mean, it's you sort of roll with the punches.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Yours, thank you so much. It was great. I enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, I'm so happy you did. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think people are going to absolutely love hearing this and hearing such a great insight into your career and your stories.
Oh,
And I
good.
cannot wait to read your book.
I
I'm
mean,
very
you're
excited
going to get a
about
book, like it or not. Okay, you're going to get a book,
that.
and then let
Well,
me know.
I can't. Absolutely, I will absolutely. I can't wait to read it.